If you are new here, welcome. You have picked the right one to start with. Regarding this format, the chapters are marked below, so if you are short on time, you can skip ahead to the movement you came for. Though if you can spare the 15 minutes, I recommend taking them in order because they were built to be watched as one singular descent. Here is the claim, and I will defend every piece of it before we are finished. A large part of what men call aging after 65 is not the calendar. It is the slow withdrawal of a handful of movements the body was engineered to receive, and giving even one of them back changes how the whole machine runs. We are going to count them down from 5 to 1. I am ordering them for a specific reason, because the fifth is the one you lose first without noticing, and the first, the one we end on, is the single most honest signal of how many years you have left that exists outside of a laboratory. When you strip everything else away, it comes down to that one movement. Stay to the end, and I will show you the 10-second version of it you can do against a wall tonight. Let us begin the descent. The first thing you lose is movement 5, the twist. Sit still for a moment and turn to look behind you. Over one shoulder, then the other. However far you got, there was probably a point where your neck took over because your spine simply would not. That rotation is the first thing a man loses and the last thing he notices because nothing about modern life ever asks for it. You face forward at the wheel, forward at the desk, forward at the screen. The spine was built to rotate. The mid-back especially is a stack of joints designed to wind and unwind. And a joint that is never taken through its range slowly forgets it has one. The discs between those vertebrae have no blood supply of their own. They feed on motion, drawing fluid in and pushing waste out as you move. Rotation is part of how they stay fed. Weld the spine straight for years, and you do not just lose the turn. You starve the tissue that makes the turn possible. The old practices knew this without the anatomy. The seated twists of yoga, where the spine is wrung out like a cloth, were not flexibility for its own sake. They were maintenance for a structure the practitioners understood would cease without it. Every throwing culture, every art built on turning to strike, trained rotation as power. Reclaiming it is unglamorous. A slow, controlled turn of the trunk in both directions, taken to the honest end of the range and no further. Do it, and the stiffness that you had filed under age starts to lift within days. But rotation is only the surface. Underneath it is a pattern you lost more completely, and it is the reason your back hurts. The bend you gave to chairs is movement 4, the hinge. Watch how a man over 60 picks something off the floor, and you will usually see him round his back to reach it. Watch a small child do the same thing, and you will see something else entirely. The hips fold back. The spine stays long. The whole load runs through the largest muscles in the body. That folding at the hip is the hinge. It is the single most important pattern the body owns for moving weight safely. The posterior chain, the glutes, the hamstrings, the muscles running up the spine, was built to be the engine of it. But a life in chairs teaches a man to bend from the lower back instead, because sitting shuts the glutes off and they forget how to fire. So the small, vulnerable joints of the lumbar spine end up doing the job the powerful hip was designed for. That is not aging. That is a movement pattern that was quietly overwritten. Every culture that worked the ground kept the hinge bending to plant, to grind, to lift 100 times a day from the hips with the spine long. They never trained it. The work was the training. We removed the work and kept nothing in its place. Grooving it back is simple to describe and humbling to do. Push the hips back as if reaching for a wall behind you. Let the knees soften. Keep the spine long and stand by driving the hips forward. Feel the back of the body do the work instead of the low back. Get that pattern back, and a whole category of "my back just does this now" often turns out to be reversible. And once the body can bend correctly, the next question is whether it can still pull, because that answer is written in your hands. Consider what your grip is telling you with movement 3, the hang. Here is something strange that the data keeps confirming. How hard you can grip with your hands is one of the most reliable readouts of how durable your whole body is. Not just forearm strength, but a proxy for the total system. Large international studies tracking tens of thousands of people have found grip strength to be a stubbornly good predictor of long-term health outcomes. Better than you would ever expect from a handshake. Grip is collapsing in modern men because nothing hangs from our hands anymore. For most of human history, the shoulder was a load-bearing, weight-hanging joint. Our ancestors moved through trees, hung, pulled, and carried. The architecture is still in you. The shoulder that can bear your full body weight from an overhead bar. The grip built to hold it. We simply stopped asking, and the capacity drained out. The movement that reverses it is the least complicated thing in this entire discussion. You hang both hands on a bar, and you let your weight settle and pull the arms long. Two things happen at once. The grip and the whole shoulder girdle load under body weight the way they were designed to. And the spine, compressed all day by gravity and sitting, decompresses. The vertebrae draw apart. The discs are given a moment of traction they never otherwise get. Start with a few seconds of assisted weight and build. A body that hangs a little every day is maintaining a system most men let vanish entirely by 70. But hanging is an upper body test. The next movement asks the whole machine a question at once, and most men over 65 already cannot pass it cleanly. The question is, can you still get off the floor? This is movement 2, the rise. Lower yourself to the floor and stand back up without using your hands, your knees, or anything to push against. However easily you did that, or did not, you just performed one of the most complete self-assessments the body offers. A researcher named Araujo built a formal version of exactly this, the sitting-rising test, and found that how well adults in the second half of life could get down to the floor and back up tracked meaningfully with how long they went on to live. It makes sense the moment you break it down. Rising from the floor unassisted demands leg strength relative to your body weight, hip and ankle mobility, balance and coordination all firing together. It is the whole machine reporting in one act. For nearly all of human history, this was invisible because it was constant. People lived close to the ground. They sat on it to eat, cross-legged or in a deep fold. They rested in a squat. They rose from the floor dozens of times a day without a thought. The chair removed every one of those repetitions. What we call the stiffness of age is in large part a body that has not been asked to get off the floor in 20 years. So ask it carefully near a support, lowering and rising as smoothly as you can manage, using as little assistance as you need, and a little less over time. It rebuilds strength, mobility, and coordination in the same movement. Which brings us to the last one, because if the rise tests the whole machine, the final movement isolates the single system that predicts better than almost anything measurable how the rest of your life is going to go. The 10-second verdict is movement 1. The stand. Stand on one leg. That is it. Lift one foot from the floor and hold. Count. For most men under 50, it is effortless and faintly ridiculous. Somewhere after that, it stops being either. In 2022, Araujo's group published something that landed hard. In older adults, the inability to hold a one-legged stand for 10 seconds was associated with a markedly higher risk of dying in the years that followed, a signal that held up even after accounting for age and other health factors. A 10-second stand quietly outperforming things we take far more seriously. It works as a verdict for the same reason the rise does, only sharper. Balance is not one ability. It is 3 systems fused in real time. Your eyes, the sense of motion in your inner ear, and the position sensors buried in your feet, ankles, and joints. Those sensors stay accurate only through use. They calibrate to a body that is challenged, sit still for years, and they dull. The corrections arrive late, and a stumble that a younger nervous system would have caught becomes a fall. And the fall is the hinge the whole second half of life can turn on. The event that too often separates independence from everything after it. This is the movement the ancients guarded most deliberately. The tree pose held on one leg until the body went quiet. The standing practice of the internal martial arts rooting through a single foot. The crane stance. They were training the exact system this 10-second test measures centuries before anyone could measure it. And here is why the whole countdown ends here. You can lose the twist and adapt. You can lose the hinge and compensate. But balance is the one system whose failure ends the game outright. And it is also one of the most responsive to being trained. Stand next to a wall or a chair. Lift 1 foot an inch. Hold what you can. 5 seconds, 10, then switch. Add a little each week. Within weeks, the sensors resharpen and the handrail starts to feel optional again. When everything else is stripped away, this is the one it comes down to. 5 movements. The twist your spine forgot, the hinge you gave to a chair, the hang your shoulders were built for, the rise that tests the whole machine, and the stand that predicts more than any of them. None of them can be bought, none needs a gym. Everyone was normal for every man who came before you, and everyone has been quietly deleted from a modern life, which is precisely why giving them back works. You do not install all 5 tomorrow. Take the last one, the stand, tonight against a wall. Add the next when it is ready. The body's not asking for much. It is asking for the inputs it was built to receive, and it will answer faster than you expect. 2 things in the comments. Your age and the country you are decoding this from. I read everyone, and tell me honestly, could you stand on one leg for 10 seconds just now? First try. No judgment. I want to see where the signal's landing. If this exploration has changed the way you look at the simple movements of your daily life, please subscribe and like the video. We are dedicated to uncovering the history and biological truths that have been buried by modern convenience. Let us plant the seeds for a stronger future. The next treasury of knowledge will be open soon.